This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Biden set to visit the Francis Scott Key Bridge this week as workers assess a tricky cleanup effort. I'm John Stolnis.
Escalating war with strikes in Syria.
It would be great if Hamas would stop hiding behind civilians.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Donald Trump posts a $175 million bond in the New York civil fraud case, which prevents seizure of his assets. I'm Jeff McKay with the details.
Disgraced former South Carolina lawyer sentenced for stealing from his clients.
On Wall Street, the first day of April trading and of the second quarter was mixed for stocks. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The last living survivor of the USS Arizona battleship that exploded and sank during the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor has died. I'm Norman Hall.
All ahead on America in the Morning. As the federal government continues to assess the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, the White House announces President Biden will visit the site this week. With more on the story from Washington, here's our John Stolnis.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre announcing the president will visit Baltimore on Friday.
To visit the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge, meet with state and local officials, and get on the ground look at federal response efforts. The president is continuing to lead a whole-of-government approach to the collapse.
Biden will also speak with Maryland Governor Wes Moore and other officials in Baltimore to help businesses and workers affected by the temporary loss of the key shipping channel into the Port of Baltimore. Moore announced yesterday the creation of a temporary channel on the northeast side of the site of the collapse, with waters running 11 feet deep.
Now we're also moving forward on creating a southwest channel for deeper draft vessels that will allow for a deeper draw. That channel will measure about 15 feet deep, and it will be open in the coming days.
Moore says officials are working as quickly as possible to remove the remnants of the bridge from the water, but warned it is slow, dangerous work, requiring the removal of small pieces of the bridge that can weigh as much as 200 tons. U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath says the operation is more complicated than they'd hoped it would be.
Unlike the steel girders that you can see that are above the waterline still, which have significant damage, below the waterline, along the bottom, is very challenging because these girders are essentially tangled together, intertwined, making it very difficult to figure out where you need to eventually cut so that we can make that into more manageable sizes to lift them from the waterway.
Meanwhile, the cargo ship Dolly remains stuck in the river with all 21 crew members still on board. The company that manages the ship, Synergy and Grace Ocean, has filed a court petition aiming to cap their liability at around $43.5 million. Congress is expected to take up an aid package to help people who may lose jobs or businesses due to the port's closure when they return from recess next week. I'm John Stolnis.
On a day when high-ranking officials of Israel and the United States met virtually, the war in the Middle East escalated with an Iran-targeted Israeli airstrike in Syria. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The war raging months after the October 7th deadly attack by Hamas in Israel, which has been followed by relentless bombings on Gaza since. This week, an Israeli airstrike destroyed Iran's consulate in Syria, killing 2 Iranian generals and 5 officers there. That, according to officials in Iran. This as Israel seemingly ramps up its effort to go after top Iranian officials. Iran backs a number of the militant groups Israel's fighting on the ground in Gaza. Meanwhile, the U.S. still discouraging Israel from launching a full ground attack in the city of Rafah, where civilians are finding shelter and where some members of Hamas and other groups are believed to be.
When Jake Sullivan was here at the podium not too long ago, he believed and he said there are alternative ways of doing this, alternative ways of going after Hamas. And so they're going to have the discussion. I think it's important that it happen as quickly as it did, even though it's virtual.
In some cases, Hamas continues to hide out in and around hospitals and occupy areas in highly populated spots.
And we are concerned by how Hamas appears. They appear to have been able to reconstitute in a hospital so quickly.
The U.S. State Department insists negotiations are underway to avoid civilian deaths and achieve more aid for Gaza.
It has been one of the goals of this administration since October 7th to keep the conflict from spreading, recognizing that Israel has the right to defend itself from adversaries that are sworn to its destruction.
State Department spokesman Matthew Miller.
It would be great if Hamas would stop hiding behind civilians and stop hiding inside civilian infrastructure, including hospitals. But two, it points out what we have been saying all along, which is the need for Israel to have a sustainable long-term strategy when it comes to Gaza.
Sullivan and Secretary of State Antony Blinken met virtually with Israeli leaders yesterday. That meeting lasted about 2 hours. The White House is said to have voiced its concern with a potential ground attack in Rafah. Conversations expected to continue and could include an in-person meeting as early as next week. I'm Clayton Neville.
Trump posts bond. Properties intact. That story when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Where are severe thunderstorms expected today? Looking into that, AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy on America in the Morning.
Severe thunderstorms developed in several areas across the central and southern plains, from Texas into Kansas and even extending into Illinois and parts of Ohio yesterday into early this morning. This is something with which we'll have to contend today. The folks in the southeast extending northward through the Ohio Valley and southern Great Lakes will need to pay close attention. This is all due to a very powerful storm and associated cold front moving eastward from the plains. This risk can start early today in much of Indiana, southward to Mississippi, and then carry eastward into Ohio and western Pennsylvania, southward to Alabama and western Georgia. These storms have the potential for very heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail, and even a tornado. The heaviest of the storms are lined up to move through northern Kentucky into Ohio. Outside of the severe thunderstorms, this system will continue to produce rain and snow through the central and northern plains. Snow in parts of northern Illinois into Wisconsin could see a slushy inch or two later today and tonight. Rain will also extend eastward from this system through West Virginia into northern Virginia and Maryland, and as far north as central New York into southern New England. Some areas will see more than an inch of rain, which could lead to some localized flooding. Additional rain will fall tonight and into the day Wednesday, with gusty thunderstorms continuing eastward through the middle Atlantic into the southeast. Sunshine will be returning to the Dakotas into Nebraska, with highs climbing into the 40s and 50s. Heading out west, we'll have another system moving into the northwest, leading to some rain that will increasingly expand southward at night. That's the weather across America. There will be plenty of sunshine in Palm Springs, California today with a high of 84. It'll be a cold day in Wausau, Wisconsin, with rain becoming mixed with snow and a high of 37. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Donald Trump has posted a $175 million bond in the New York civil fraud case, preventing seizure of his assets while the case is on appeal. America in the Morning's Jeff McKay has more on the story.
The bond comes after a state appeals court ruled last week that the former president and his co-defendants had 10 days to post the amount, which was reduced from the $464 million judgment that was originally due on March 25th. Politico reporting that the bond he posted was provided by the Los Angeles-based Knight Insurance Group, but it is not known which specific assets Trump used as collateral for the bond. If he hadn't posted the bond, New York Attorney General Letitia James, who brought the lawsuit accusing Trump of corporate fraud, would have begun freezing his bank accounts or seizing property while the appeals process played out. If Trump doesn't win on appeal, a process that his attorney Alina Habba said in a statement that he will have to pay the full amount from the judgment stemming from the state attorney general's fraud case. I'm Jeff McKay.
Convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh receives another prison sentence, this time in federal court, and he also has to pay millions in restitution for stealing from clients and his law firm. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
55-year-old disbarred attorney Alex Murdaugh is already serving a life sentence without parole in a state prison for killing his wife and son. Before his sentencing Monday for stealing from clients and his law firm, Murdaugh apologized again to his victims and blamed drug abuse. A judge says his schemes were too complex for an addict. The 22 counts are the final charges outstanding for the disgraced attorney. He also pleaded guilty to similar financial crime charges in state court. I'm Julie Walker.
In sports, the women's Final Four is set. Iowa defeated LSU, the defending champs. Connecticut knocked out Southern California. The Hawkeyes are slated to play the Huskies on Friday. Trump media shares fall, and a check of Americans' average household wealth. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed start to this new month of April and of the second quarter of the year. The Dow dropped 240 points. The S&P 500 index slipped from a record high. The Nasdaq was in the green.
If you go looking for things to worry about in this market, all I really come up with is it's been too good for too long. And markets don't go in one direction indefinitely like this.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Trump media shares plunged yesterday. The company lost a fifth of its value after a regulatory filing disclosed it was losing money.
This is, of course, the parent company of Truth Social, the social media platform owned by former President Donald Trump. This comes on the heels of them reporting in their latest regulatory filings, their first report as a newly merged public social company, a loss of $58 million for fiscal 2023 on revenues of around $4.1 million. The company also says in the filing that it says, quote, TMTG, Trump Media Telecom Group, expects to incur operating losses for the foreseeable future.
CNBC's Dominic Chu. United Airlines will soon ask some pilots to take unpaid leave.
The company will be receiving fewer aircraft than it originally planned. If you don't have as many planes because of the issues when it comes to Boeing producing 737 MAXs, you are not going to need as many pilots.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Google parent Alphabet agreed to destroy billions of data records to settle a lawsuit claiming it secretly tracked the internet use of people who thought they were browsing privately. The settlement requires a federal judge's approval.
It's said a rising tide lifts all boats. We've seen that in the market, but what about the average American's bank account?
Yeah, it turns out household wealth hit a record high in the U.S. last year, and not just for the ultra-rich, for regular people, too.
We have record highs in the market and record wealth as a result. Household wealth reaching an all-time high at the end of 2023. That was thanks mainly to that end-of-year stock rally. The wealthiest 10% of Americans own 87% of all individually held stocks. The stock market has helped create the fastest wealth boom for just about everyone in recent history. Since 2020, the wealth of the middle 50% to 90%, so that's really the middle class, has increased by 45%. About half of that coming from their home values.
CNBC's Robert Frank. On today's watch list, we get the latest on job opportunity and labor turnover with the JOLTS report. GE Vernova begins trading as a standalone healthcare company today, being spun off from GE. And the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas closes today. It was built in 1957. It'll eventually become a new Major League Baseball stadium.
Predicted here on the show yesterday. Yes, indeed. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return, Pearl Harbor attack survivor passes and FBI attacked. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. He was an important part of the greatest generation. The man who was the last survivor of the USS Arizona from the Pearl Harbor attack has passed away. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Lou Conter was 102. His daughter says Conter passed away at his home Monday in Grass Valley, California, following congestive heart failure. The Arizona lost 1,177 sailors and Marines in the 1941 attack that launched the United States into World War II. The battleship's dead account for nearly half of those killed in the surprise attack. Conter was standing on the main deck of the Arizona as Japanese planes flew overhead at 7:55 a.m. on December 7th that year. I'm Norman Hall.
It wasn't your typical day at the FBI in Atlanta, Georgia. Sue Aller reports a driver is being investigated after he rammed his car into the front gate at headquarters.
Authorities say a man driving a red SUV tried to get into the standalone building by following the car in front of him. It didn't work as iron gates came down on the vehicle. He then ran from his car but was quickly apprehended. Video from the scene shows the vehicle crumbled into the barrier. Atlanta FBI Assistant Special Agent Peter Ellis spoke with ABC News and says FBI field offices are extremely secure.
He tried to follow in and tried getting into the gate, but our security precautions prevented him from getting in.
Ellis also says the suspect was taken to an area hospital for evaluation.
Several of our special agents who were passing by apprehended him. His motives at this point are not known. This time we are looking at both state and federal charges.
The car was checked for explosives and weapons by the bomb squad, but none were found. The car he was driving had South Carolina license plates. I'm Sue Aller.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, the latest on getting the Port of Baltimore reopened. And a judge expands the gag order on Donald Trump. We'll have those stories.
A wet White House has again hosted an annual Easter tradition. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Tens of millions of Americans on high alert for inclement weather. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Florida Supreme Court has upheld the state's ban on most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. I'm Norman Hall.
The government says traffic deaths in the U.S. dropped nearly 4% last year. I'm Jackie Quinn.
I'll have a rundown of some of the most absurd headlines from April Fool's Day. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning, beginning on the left side of the national map. Let's check in for the nation's weather and AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
In the west, most areas of the region will be quiet, but the next storm to impact the territory more largely will move into the northwest later today and then continue to expand tonight. This will cause some rain to develop along the Washington coast late today and then move along the Oregon coast and produce showers eastward toward Idaho tonight. Ahead of the storm, we can look for sunshine for most areas through southern Oregon into California and then eastward to Montana into the central Rockies and southwest. There will, however, be a few afternoon showers lingering in New Mexico. Afternoon temperatures will largely be in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Severe thunderstorms developed in many areas of the Plains states yesterday and continued into early this morning. This is all due to a very powerful storm and associated cold front moving eastward from the plains. This risk can start early today in much of Indiana, southward to Mississippi, and then eastward into Ohio and western Pennsylvania, as well as southward to Alabama and western Georgia. These storms will have the potential for very heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail, and even a tornado. The heaviest of these storms are lined up to move through northern Kentucky into Ohio. Outside of the severe thunderstorms, this storm will continue to produce rain and snow through the central and northern plains. Snow in parts of northern Illinois into Wisconsin could see a slushy inch or two later today and tonight. Rain will also extend eastward from the storm through West Virginia into northern Virginia and Maryland, and as far north as central New York into southern New England. Some areas will see more than an inch of rain, and this could lead to some localized flooding. Additional rain will fall tonight into the day Wednesday, with gusty storms continuing into the southeast. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Crews are working to open a temporary alternate channel for commercially essential vessels near the site of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Ed Donahue reports that's the first step in getting the vital port reopened.
The Coast Guard opened a temporary alternate channel for vessels involved in the clearing of debris at the site of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Crews are undertaking the complicated work of removing steel and concrete.
The scale of this project, to be clear, it is enormous. And even the small lifts are huge. That's how we have to move forward.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore says the top priority is to recover the bodies of 4 workers who were on the bridge, followed by reopening shipping channels to the port.
Every time we move a piece of the structure, the situation could become even more dangerous. We have to move fast, but we cannot be careless.
President Biden will travel to Baltimore at the end of the week. What will he see?
You cannot overstate how important it is that the President of the United States is coming to visit. And the thing that I know that he's going to see is he's going to see the unprecedented level of damage that this has caused. He's going to see the fact that we have a ship that is almost the size of the Eiffel Tower, that weighs about as much as the Washington Monument, that's sitting in the middle of the Patapsco River.
Some barges and tugs stuck in the port of Baltimore since the collapse are also scheduled to pass through the channel on their way out of the harbor. I'm Ed Donahue.
A New York judge has expanded the gag order placed on former President Donald Trump in an effort to limit his recent barrage of attacks against the judge's daughter. Lisa Dwyer has the story.
Judge Juan Bachan says his original gag order issued last Tuesday did not include members of his family, but Trump's subsequent actions warrants including them. Bachan says that Trump's pattern of attacking family members of presiding jurists and attorneys assigned to his cases serves no legitimate purpose. Prosecutors urged the judge to clarify or expand his gag order after Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform that Lauren Bachan, who is a Democratic political consultant, makes money by working to get Trump, and wrongly accused her of posting a social media photo of Trump behind bars. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Rain may have delayed it, but an annual White House tradition continued Monday when President Biden and the First Lady hosted the annual Easter egg roll for children. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
A wet White House has again hosted an annual Easter tradition.
Hi, everybody. Happy Easter. Hi.
The weather here in Washington was miserable, bad enough that thunder and lightning delayed the festivities for 90 minutes. But once it cleared a bit,
Welcome to the White House Easter egg roll.
First Lady Jill Biden and her husband greeted thousands on the South Lawn.
It's time to pray for one another, to cherish the blessings and the possibilities that we have as Americans. That's what I see in our country. We're a great nation because we're good people.
The president saying Easter is a time of hope and renewal.
But mainly love and grace toward one another.
From there, the president watched kids try to get eggs across the lawn.
All right, so how many of you know brown bear? Oh, a lot of you. Wow. So if you know it, you can say it along with me. Brown bear, what do you see?
Others listened to the First Lady read as part of her education theme.
I'm a teacher, so I love any time when we can turn the White House into a classroom. And that's what we're doing today. The South Lawn is transforming into our learning playground and school community.
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
An East Coast nor'easter, snow in New England, tornadoes and hail in the Midwest, all just part of the severe weather expected to impact millions of Americans over the course of the next 24 hours. Filing this report, Correspondent Clayton Neville.
Strong thunderstorms with hail, high wind, and heavy rain moved from the west to parts of Oklahoma and Texas late last night.
We're looking at a serious risk of some serious storms here with large hail and damaging winds.
Meteorologists like KLIF's Brad Barton in Dallas warning of potential hail and wind damage as first responders stress the dangers of the severe storms.
Stay inside. A lot of folks try and go outside to see what it's like. Don't do that because
People get injured all the time. Try and stay away from windows. Those can often become damaged. And if you are outside, seek shelter immediately, but stay out of low-lying areas that might fill with water.
Matt Zavodsky runs an ambulance service in Texas.
If you start to become involved in a hailstorm, try and find a safe place to have cover. A bank, I love the drive-thrus at banks, other places where you can get under cover. Do not do it on the highway. Don't try and stop at an overpass because that just causes major traffic dangers.
Nearly 50 million people across the country expected to get some type of inclement weather with the system that first impacted San Diego. Wet rain and cooling temperatures expected to bring snow and freezing rain to Michigan and Wisconsin before heading east into Boston and across New England. Snow expected to pile up in the Great Lakes region and the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians under a severe weather warning with a chance of tornadoes. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, among the stories we're covering, Florida Supreme Court rules on abortion, surprising new numbers on U.S. traffic fatalities, and in sports, our Robert Workman checks in with more hoops action from the NCAA. We're back after these messages. I'm John Trout. This is America in the Morning. The Florida Supreme Court has upheld the state's 15-week abortion ban, which also allows for the Sunshine State's 6-week ban on the procedure to remain in effect. As correspondent Norman Hall reports, what was decided by the state's highest court will soon be ruled on by the voters.
The Florida Supreme Court has upheld the state's ban on most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, which means a subsequently passed 6-week ban can soon take effect. The court that was reshaped by former presidential candidate and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis ruled that the 15-week ban signed by DeSantis in 2022 can take effect. A 6-week ban passed in the 2023 legislative session was written so that it would not take effect until a month after the 2022 law was upheld. Since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in June 2022, most Republican-controlled states have adopted bans or restrictions on abortions. Every ban has faced a court challenge. I'm Norman Hall.
More's being learned about the Easter Sunday deadly shooting inside a Nashville restaurant. Correspondent Jennifer King has the latest.
Police in Nashville, Tennessee say one man was killed and 5 people wounded Sunday afternoon when a man opened fire inside Roasted, a restaurant in the Salemtown neighborhood.
This was a Sunday brunch scenario. They were serving food.
Metro Police spokesman Don Aaron.
This was one person who decided to pull a gun based on an altercation occurring with another man, and then he fired multiple shots.
Neighbor Carly Payne spoke to WTVF.
Seeing families run out, kids run out was probably like the worst part of it, the scariest part of it.
The deceased victim was identified as 33-year-old Alan Beecham. Police are looking for a suspect believed to be 46-year-old Anton Rucker.
You have 2 photographs that have been released of the gunman. And then you also have a photograph of the Mercedes GL 450 in which he fled the area.
Audio courtesy WTVF. I'm Jennifer King.
Jury selection underway in an Idaho trial for a man charged in the deaths of his wife and 2 of his girlfriend's children. Following that story, correspondent Donna Warder.
55-year-old Chad Daybell is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder for the November 2019 deaths of his wife, Tammy Daybell, and 7-year-old Joshua Vallow and teenager Tylee Ryan, the youngest children of the woman with whom he was having an affair. The children disappeared in September 2019, and their bodies were found in the summer of 2020, buried in Chad Daybell's yard in eastern Idaho. The children's mother married Chad Daybell shortly after the children's disappearance, and just a couple of weeks after Daybell's wife, Tammy, died. Lori Vallow Daybell, the children's mother and Chad Daybell's new wife, was convicted last year and sentenced to life in prison without parole. I'm Donna Warder.
All the data from 2023 has been gathered, and there's a drop in the number of U.S. traffic fatalities. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
The government says traffic deaths in the U.S. dropped nearly 4% last year. The latest figures from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration find 41,000 people were killed on the nation's roadways last year. That's a 3.6% drop from the year before, and it comes as people are driving more. But NHTSA officials say too many people are dying, blaming the problem in part to distracted driving. The agency finds 20% of those killed were outside of vehicles, meaning pedestrians, bicyclists, and others. It's launching a new ad campaign called Put the Phone Away or Pay. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Last month, there were 30 major cyber attacks, which is actually down 48% from February. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
According to a post on the block.co, over 30 crypto hacks occurred last month, which is a decrease from the previous month. More than $187 million was lost due to hacks in the crypto space, while nearly $99 million was recovered, according to an infographic from blockchain security firm PeckShield. This marks a decrease of 48% from February of 2024. One exploit of note occurred in the Curio ecosystem, a project that aims to help firms unlock liquidity from real-world assets, when it saw $16 million in losses due to cybersecurity. In an unusual twist, a crypto wallet connected to Prisma Finance was drained of $11 million following a flash loan attack. The wallet connected to the attack claimed to be a white hat hacker and expressed interest in returning the funds to the protocol while demanding the project team hold an online press conference, identify themselves publicly, and apologize to their users. Tell us what you think at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues with a check of sports and our Robert Workman.
College basketball, the women's Final Four is all set. Iowa topped LSU last night, avenging last year's title game loss. 41 points for Caitlin Clark, plus a dozen assists.
It's amazing to be back in the Final Four. It's so hard to get there, especially with this region and how loaded this region was. But, we told ourselves we're the 1 seed for a reason.
The Hawkeyes will face Connecticut in Friday's second semifinal in Cleveland. The Huskies beat USC. They return to the Final Four for the 23rd time. In the first semifinal, it's NC State against unbeaten South Carolina. Baseball, 2 more home openers on Monday. The Cubs shut out the Rockies at Wrigley Field. Shota Imanaga fired 6 innings of 2-hit ball with 9 strikeouts in his big league debut. The Nationals dropped their opener to the Pirates. Pittsburgh is 5-0 for the first time since 1983, all on the road. Same story for the Yankees, who won in Arizona. After getting swept at home by New York, the Astros got their first win in a big way. They blasted the Blue Jays 10-0. Ronel Blanco tossing a no-hitter, 7 strikeouts and 2 walks in just his 8th career start, backed up by 5 home runs. Braves blanked the White Sox. Red Sox whitewashed the A's. Tigers and Mets both went scoreless through 9. Then Detroit put up a 5 spot in the 10th, capped by Carson Kelly's 3-run dinger. Angels rallied past the Marlins. Mike Trout with 2 solo shots. Jordan Westberg's 2-run tater in the 9th gave the Orioles the win over the Royals. Spencer Steer's grand slam in the 10th lifted the Reds past the Phillies. Wins for the Rangers, Mariners, Dodgers, and Cardinals. NBA, the Suns scorched the Pelicans. Devin Booker with 52 points. Phoenix now just a game behind New Orleans for the 6th spot in the West. NHL, the Penguins pinged the Rangers. 2 goals and an assist for Sidney Crosby. That assures him of averaging at least a point a game for the 19th consecutive season. Here's the list of all the guys who have done that before. Wayne Gretzky. Also 2 more goals for Austin Matthews. He's up to 62 for the Leafs. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, get a load of yesterday's April Fool's Day prank after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Actress Barbara Rush, who won a Golden Globe and starred on stage, screen, and TV, including on Peyton Place and It Came from Outer Space, has passed away. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
You want to be a 2-bit bicycle thief all your life?
Barbara Rush joked in a 1997 interview she would start performing the minute the light in the refrigerator came on. Rush played the mob boss's daughter in the Frank Sinatra film Robin and the Seven Hoods and Marsha Russell in the TV series Peyton Place.
If I'm not Big Jim's daughter, why did I ask you to do away with this killer? For which, by the way, I thank you.
She was also known for the movies Come Blow Your Horn, Magnificent Obsession, and the 3D sci-fi classic It Came from Outer Space. Rush also appeared in the series Flamingo Road and All My Children, and she had a recurring role as Ruth Camden on the series Seventh Heaven. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Seems gas prices are rising by the day. Correspondent Rita Foley reports California has once again topped an average above $5 a gallon.
Gas is about $3.53 a gallon today. That's up about 20 cents in a month, but about the same as a week ago, says the AAA. Spokesman Andrew Gross says concern about Ukraine's war with Russia likely spiked oil prices recently, but he says those concerns have been winding down somewhat for now. And gas prices, he says, are settling into a pattern similar to last year when the usual seasonal increase, he said, was slow and steady. The highest gas prices now are in California. It's $5.10 a gallon there. The lowest prices are in parts of the South and Midwest. It's $3.07 in Mississippi, $3.15 in Kansas. I'm Rita Foley.
Not everything that was posted on April Fool's Day online actually happened. Kevin Carr has a look at the best of what really wasn't true.
Yesterday was April Fool's Day, famous for being the only day of the year people are skeptical of what they read or hear on the internet. Here's the best of what definitely did not happen yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Infinite. Eminem has absolutely not released his new album Infinite 2. Similarly, British comedian Ricky Gervais is surely not returning as his Office character David Brent in a new film this summer.
I'm not a liar. No, look it up when you get home.
And Sam Raimi is almost certainly not returning to direct Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 4.
I don't believe this. I don't believe you.
You never know about that one. Companies promise new products all the time, but we are assuredly not getting toothpaste flavored with sriracha, Haggis ice cream from Aldi's, or Big Bite hot dog flavored salsa water from 7-Eleven.
Hi, would you like to try some Big Bite hot dog sparkling water?
Yeah. And Krispy Kreme is totally not going to let you just glaze anything. Finally, Carnival Cruise Line is unquestionably not tapping Cleveland as a home port, and Royal Caribbean International is most indubitably not installing a 620-meter ship and slide that takes passengers from the pool deck directly into the open ocean.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to meet my new girlfriend, Taylor Swift, after our first date last night on the space shuttle. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.